It's all happening. 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 Hello, friends. Welcome to the It's All Happening video series. This is video number 1. So this is the first video in what I hope to be a long string of videos exploring topics that we talk about on the podcast, but maybe talk about them in a different way or explore them maybe a little bit more deeply. So yes, this is video number 1. I'm really glad you're here. It is called 6 Rules to Make Facebook a Better Place. So the idea here is, well, first of all, you can substitute the word Facebook with the word social media, the phrase social media. The same rules apply to all social media. The reason I chose Facebook is because Facebook has the most malleability, the most elasticity, the most variation in terms of what kind of content you can share on social media. You can share short form, you can share long form, you can post links, you can post videos, you can upload videos, you can upload photos. So there's a lot of variety on Facebook, which I think probably what makes Facebook the most popular of the social media ecosystems. So the idea here is to explore 6 rules that make the environment, I think if you sort of follow these 6 rules, it can make the environment a better place to hang out. And it's already with the understanding, you kind of have to go into this with the understanding that you're already hanging out here. If perhaps in another podcast or another video, we can talk about ways to perhaps spend less time in social media and more time doing other things. But the idea here is that we're already hanging out here. So let's make it a better place for everybody. So rule number 1, limit self-promotion. So this may sound a little strange because I use Facebook all the time for my self-promotions, for instance, or to promote other things that I'm doing. And I know a lot of you also do the same thing. But the idea is to limit it, to find some kind of balance with the amount of self-promotion that you do within social media. So think of it this way. Think if Facebook or any other social media, Facebook was entirely nothing but a bulletin board for self-promotion. People promoting their concerts that they're doing, or the open mics that they're doing, or the podcasts that they have, or the books that they're writing. If it was nothing but that, it would be one big advertisement. It would be a pretty dull place to hang out, right? So I think we all have to be cognizant of that, that perhaps that ultimate reality, which may or may not happen, but be cognizant of that. And if you want to get very pragmatic about it, to me, it's 1 out of every 5 posts. So 4 out of 5 posts should just be cool content that you're sharing with the world. 1 out of 5 can be self-promotion about whatever cool thing that you're working on and you want to share with the world. But don't use it as 100% as nothing but just this megaphone for me, because that really dulls the qualitative aspect of this environment. Rule number 2, reciprocity. Interesting word, right? So in this context, like, comment, and share other people's stuff. Don't use it as a one-way communication funnel. That is, just don't post your stuff and ignore everybody else's stuff that they're contributing to the world. I think who you follow is just as important as who's following you. So like and comment on other people's stuff, stoke the fire by keeping the cultural conversation going, and the reciprocity, the back and forth, the equal exchange of energy and output and time spent within social media is just as important as any other qualitative factor around it. So rule number 2, reciprocity. Rule number 3, disrupt the algorithm. So for those of you who listen to my podcast, I talk about this a lot, the idea of the filter bubble. There's a great book out there called The Filter Bubble, which really explores the idea in great detail about how the web's function of personalization has created this little side effect, this little ripple in the matrix that has created content bubbles where we hang out in, and we spend a lot of time in these content bubbles that are built because of the personalization. They're built to ignore other content bubbles. So not to do a whole, World Wide Web sort of seminar here and explore how it works. I think all of you understand how it works, but the idea is that with all the information that is being tracked and all of your clicks, all the websites that you visit, it's basically things like places like Google and places like Facebook are storing an online profile of you. And the intention is the personalized profile tells the computer to give you content that it thinks that you want to see. But the problem with that is we never see content that rests outside of our comfort zone. So, for instance, in my world, you rarely see very right-wing conservative content. Why would you? Facebook only thinks I want to see stuff about Bernie Sanders. So it's just feeding me that stuff constantly all the time. And unless you disrupt the algorithm, you're never going to see how other people are thinking. And I think this is a really important idea, as horrific as it may be. Sometimes I talk about this and people are like, oh my God, you're so brave. But really, it's not that big a deal. I think it's important to dive into other bubbles, other content bubbles, to see what's going on. So if you disrupt the algorithm by, for example, in my case, again, by liking Donald Trump's page or Glenn Beck or Rush Limbaugh or a page that I look at all the time called Right Wing Watch on Facebook, Facebook starts to think that I'm interested in conservative ideas. So it starts feeding me things that I normally wouldn't click on. And then thus I start visiting sites I normally wouldn't visit. So it's a really interesting idea to play with, and I really encourage everybody to do it, as crazy and as weird as it may sound. I think it's really important so we understand, so we don't create more separation than we already have. Rule number 4, enough cute animal pictures. Rule number 5, argue, but do it kindly. So the idea here is, and I'm very guilty of this, and for those of you who follow me on Facebook or my friends or like me or whatever, know that I really get involved, especially in the political discourse, in a way that is probably very rude, and the manners that my mother brought me up on are probably thrown out the window. And Mother, I'm very sorry about that, but I'm learning. So what we should do here, though, is challenge people. So ideas that are spread within social media, oftentimes they go unchecked. People just post random shit, just thinking that nobody's going to jump into it with them and challenge their ideas or challenge the facts or challenge the source. It's really important to do this. So we're just not fed information blindly. And this goes also for mainstream media as well. The great thing about especially with Twitter, is you can tweet back at authors who write these articles and give them a piece of your mind if you think they're completely full of shit. So I think this is really important. Number 5, argue, but do it kindly. Really get into it with people. Stoke the fires. Make this an interesting place to be. It's sort of like what was akin to the great town square in the 18th century, where all the thinkers of the community would gather in community and stand on wooden boxes to proclaim their protest against King George, or to question Thomas Jefferson or the leaders of state about what was going into the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. This is our chance to stand up and make our voice heard. So argue, be disruptive, be disobedient. All the great social movements of our time all had some disobediency, and this is no exception. Rule number 6, post cool shit. Now, what we're thinking here is, who's to say what's cool and what isn't cool? But that's exactly the point. Post things that you think are cool. It doesn't matter what other people think are cool. So one of the great side effects of social media and the internet is that we have a chance now to disrupt the gatekeepers. The people who were previously responsible for bringing us content and news and curating the vernacular of our times now they're still important, but they've taken kind of a backseat, because we can drive directly through likes and follows and shares, and by creating a viral sensation, we can define what it is that is worthwhile for our content sponges, for the way that we listen to music, the news that we watch, the things that we click on. It's up to us. So post lots of cool shit. Don't worry about how many likes you have or how many people are sharing it. That's just egocentric bullshit. That's not what social media is. Not a contest. Just post cool things, cool music, cool news items. I have 3 or 4 friends within Facebook that I look to all the time, almost exclusively for my music recommendations. And I love that so much. So keep it up. Post cool shit. So this is video number 1, 6 rules to make Facebook a better place. Check back soon, listen to the podcast, and that's it. Thanks.